Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the Vidmark podcast. Today we have a very unique episode. We have a panel discussion that was actually done during a Toastmasters meeting. So if you've been following the podcast for a while, you know that I'm a big advocate for Toastmasters. But so it's done in the panelist format, the Toastmasters format, and we brought together three very experienced marketers that have all very unique backgrounds. And I'll do an intro for each of them as we move along with the episode. But thanks for tuning in. I think you guys are going to really like this one. Let's cue the intro. Welcome to Vidmark, a podcast to give you the video marketing knowledge to always hit the mark. Let us help build your confidence with video strategy and content creation best practices. Join us weekly for pro tips and guest interviews as we explore the powerful communication tool of video. It's time to boost your business. Let's talk video. I want to say a big welcome to the Future of Marketing Toastmasters panel. Also could be known as Developing Your Personal Brand in 2021 and beyond, like Brian mentioned. And today we'll be discussing some good tips, some best practices, and simply where to begin. There are so many platforms and tools, and it can get very overwhelming. So we have an awesome lineup of panelists, all with marketing and Toastmasters background and experience. And I would like to ask you, the audience, to engage with this panel. So as the panel goes on, think of some questions because we're going to open it up to the floor for that engagement. And so our first panelist to start things off is Nina Byrd. Nina Byrd has 8+ years in strategic consulting for financial, governmental, environment, nonprofit, medical, and creative service industries. From small businesses to enterprise corporations, her robust experience ensures an agile approach to any project plan. Through empathy and analysis, her skills span the gamut of business advertisement and holistic marketing practices. Nina's experience integrates cross-functional teams such as software developers, managers, vendors, and creatives alike, enabling her projects to produce high-impact results. Her mission is to elevate the brand experience internally so that it can flawlessly represent externally. Nina values nonlinear thinking where teams can balance purposeful work with high-impact results. Welcome, Nina.
Thanks so much for having me.
Did I get everything?
Yes, it's always incredibly uncomfortable to hear, but thank you for the bio.
You're welcome. Well, thank you. We're excited to have you on the panel. Our next panelist is Phil Bernstein. Phil helps small and medium-sized Pacific Northwest businesses connect with their target customers, deliver their messages, and generate more sales. He does this with broadcast radio advertising and precisely targeted digital campaigns. It works because he's able to offer a customized advertising plan. He can tailor the best methods to reach your specific audience where they are. Based on your target's audience demographics, we'll craft a personalized custom plan to maximize your reach and impact. We'll choose specific channels and outlets where your potential customers are listening, reading, and surfing. Then we'll use his copywriting skills to craft a persuasive message that compels your target to take action. Welcome, Phil. How are you doing?
I'm doing fine, and there was nothing uncomfortable about that at all. You can talk about me as much as you want.
There we go. Doing the plug. Well, thank you, Phil, for being a part of the panel. Our next panelist is Snow Blackwood. Snow Blackwood is a creative director. Her magic is that she grew up surrounded by a family of artists, studied art and design, and is an artist, graphic designer herself. For 20+ years, she focused her creative energy on delivering powerful messaging that elevates businesses and nonprofits, small, medium, and large. Snow has worked her magic as a creative design manager for Papa Murphy's, as a designer for Willamette Week, and as a publication savior at Oregon Home Magazine. Currently, her vision guides the team at SBD to create compelling concepts and designs for a multitude of varied clients. Snow started at Oregon Home Magazine as a temp art director, but the ailing publication was about to fold, and she had the skills to resuscitate it, quickly rising to associate publisher, then creative director and editor. She rebranded OHM, developed issue release parties, increased ad sales by 300%, and took the magazine from 2 to 4 issues per year, and hired an awesome staff. Snow sees beyond what is and makes it what it could be, and then uses her creative vision and business skills to take you there. Welcome, Snow. How are you doing today?
Thank you so much, Brian. I'm excited to be here. Really excited about this topic, and good practice for me to talk about this stuff. So thank you.
Definitely. Well, welcome, Snow, and welcome to all of our panelists. Sorry for the lengthy read. At this time, I'll now give you what you guys signed up for, and that was to listen to our panel. So to start our panel discussion, I have a question for anyone that would like to just kind of get us started, which is branding yourself in 2021. What does this mean, and why is it important?
Well, I guess I'll start. The line I've used for a long time, and I no longer remember where I heard it first. It is visibility means opportunity. The more people who know who you are and what you do and how you can help, the more chances you are to do business with them. And so more than anything else, what marketing is getting in front of people who matter and letting them know what your value proposition is. That hasn't changed. What has changed is the technology that allows you to do it. And that's changing all the time. Human nature has not.
Yeah, would you like all of us to speak on that?
Sure. Yeah. Thank you, Phil. And yes, no, yeah, whatever comes to mind.
So can you read the question again?
Yeah, the question is, what does it mean to brand yourself, today, digitally in 2021, and why is it important to brand yourself?
Great question. So when I first, thought about this topic of branding yourself, I actually had a little bit of an aversion to the idea of, branding yourself personally, because, I think when you think of branding, you think of a company and selling a product. And as a human being, you don't necessarily want to sell yourself. But I do think that it is important, especially if you're a small business owner, and with the digital world that we live in, even more so today with COVID, it can be a little uncomfortable to think about branding yourself, but it is important to take the steps to do that in order to promote your business and recognize that, like Phil said, it's human nature to judge people on how you present yourself to the world. So thinking of yourself as a brand is very strategic and really a smart thing to do. And it's a balance, to also remain as an authentic person and not think about it too much, not try too hard, but to have a plan and to do some of the branding work, which I can talk a little bit more about how we do that later on in our discussion, and some tools around branding later on.
Awesome. Thank you, Snow. And then Nina, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, and I'll piggyback on, my original comment of why it's so uncomfortable for people to read my bios, whether I'm doing a keynote presentation or speaking at Toastmasters. It's always uncomfortable because I don't think it represents fully who I am. And that's because I think character is a really hard thing to put into copy. And I think branding is actually about character. It's about who are you, who are relationally to other people, and why is what you have to say or what you want to do important. What problem are you solving in the world? What do you stand for? What are your values? And that's just an oftentimes a hard thing to communicate. And I think those are the things that businesses are struggling with, which I think we're going to talk about a little bit now in this panel. But branding is so important because people are really craving that individual connection to a brand. Who are you and what do you stand for? Your character.
Definitely. Yeah, well put by all of you. Yeah, I guess I'll put this next question. I'll send this to you, Snow. Are there any specific platforms or tools you think people should be using to brand themselves, and feel free to continue that conversation of why it's, maybe we can unpack why it's so uncomfortable, or where are some of those challenges along the way too.
Yeah, great question. So as far as tools go, there are many, and most of us are familiar with all the social media platforms as far as Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn, Twitter. I think that for me personally, it's social media and putting myself out there on social media. I try to kind of separate my personal from business. So I have my business and social media posts for that. And then I have a personal page and social media posts for that. I do think either way, especially if you own a business, you should always be careful about what you put on social media. I think it's important to, so if you are looking at yourself as branding yourself or branding your company, tools that can really help with that. There's some great management tools like later.com is one that we use. And you can schedule all of your posts ahead of time on the different platforms. So I think that's a great tool. And I think actually, planning ahead and going through the practice of having, first starting with the branding, honing in, like Nina was saying, on, what do you stand for? What's important to you? And really doing that work, which is, soul searching, and working with other people on that too is really helpful, I think, to have a group, because it's very hard to do it for yourself. And planning ahead is super helpful. If you're like me and you're shy about posting on social media, if you have your content planned ahead and you have you've thought it out and you've thought about how it makes sense with your brand ahead of time, that's a really great way to do it, to ease some of the anxiety of, am I posting something intelligent?
Definitely. Yeah, thank you, Snow. That's a great resource of later, and kind of mapping that out and putting in some thought before just posting whatever on social media. Phil, are there any tools that you come to mind for you when it comes to promoting your own personal brand?
A number of things, and the one that Snow mentioned later, I use something called Buffer, which is basically the same idea. Allows you to schedule social media posts on multiple platforms. You can put something in, send it to LinkedIn or Facebook or Twitter, or just one of those, and you can schedule something for an entire week as a series of posts. The other tool that I've been using quite a bit is something called BombBomb, BOMB, which is a video email platform. It allows you to very quickly record a video, and you can post it. You can post it on your own emails to somebody, post it in LinkedIn, post it in other platforms. And video is something that can often separate you from somebody else. One thing about tools in general is you can really go into the weeds on it and spend so much time playing with the tools, you forget to get any work done. And there are a lot of different social media platforms out there. And rather than trying to be on all of them, you're better off picking one or two and becoming particularly good at that. And a lot depends on the nature of your business. My wife is a knitting instructor and a pattern designer, and her tool of choice for this is Instagram. She's all over Instagram. She has a very visual business, and that is a perfect place to do it. I have an Instagram account, but I don't think I've been there in 6 months. My tool, that I use is LinkedIn, and I try to spend as much time as possible maximizing the value I get from that and the value I give on that. So you got to be careful not to go into the weeds too much.
Yeah, that's really good advice. Yeah, because it can get overwhelming. So I like that tip of, picking what works for you and sticking to it. Nina, do you have a favorite tool or tools that you like to use?
Yeah, I'll just echo what Phil said, that it's really depending on your industry. Not every tool is appropriate for every type of industry. But if I had to have some best recommendations that can be wide sweeping, I would say LinkedIn is definitely an emerging leader, especially this past year. They've grown tremendously, particularly for B2B marketing. I don't think it works quite as well for B2C. Instagram is a must-have for most businesses these days just because it's highly visual. Video is going to trend 7 to 10 times more than a static image would. So video is the form of content that I think people need to be most readily producing. And there's a new platform called Clubhouse. I'm not sure if people have heard of that. It's an app right now only available on iOS, but it's an audio only format. So you're able to have conversations. I actually think folks like people in Toastmasters would excel there because it's very short amounts of information that you can communicate, but You can communicate with a celebrity in a room. You can communicate with your neighbor, all these different folks about different content. And it's grown, I think, tenfold in the past 2 months. So that's been an amazing platform.
Awesome. Thank you, Nina. Yeah, I hadn't heard of that one, Clubhouse. I'll have to look into that one after this meeting. That's
By
awesome.
invite only. So
Yeah,
Okay,
it's
so we,
invitation only right now.
yeah, it's invitation only. So you can just ask around. Most people have an invitation or two to extend out.
oh wow, so they've added the cool exclusive factor to it.
Yeah, my invitation was
okay,
evidently
so we've talked it.
Go
Got
ahead,
lost in
Brian.
the mail. Well, I was going to say, so we've talked about kind of what is brand, why is it important, some of the tools, and then what got mentioned was showcasing your values. And Snow mentioned that it can be kind of challenging to find those values. And I'll open this up to anyone on the panel. How do you identify your values, and then how do you make sure that you're showcasing those appropriately?
Well, I can start. So one tool that we use at my agency with companies is to, I have kind of a questionnaire and we go through these, check, are you, classic or modern, different adjectives, and try to narrow down the essence of your brand and what you stand for into just 3 adjectives. So that process of, and again, collaborating with others on this, I think is super powerful. And then just when you come up with those 3 words and you settle on 3 words, to say it's like edgy, fun, inspired. Whatever you post, you can consistently refer back to those 3 words and say, oh, does this match that feel? So I think that's a great tool to have a consistency throughout your content, which is super powerful with branding.
Definitely. Anyone else on the panel have some thoughts?
I think go ahead, Nina.
When I have clients, and actually have a lot of agencies that struggle with this, so I advise over a dozen agencies, the executive teams, and I always work with just executive leaders. And agencies actually are notorious for not knowing what their values are. I think it's really popular to have the things written on the walls and have the wood paneling up and the cool coffee bar or kombucha bar with some words written on the walls. But when I ask, what do these values mean to you? You get different answers from every single staff member, and some people actually have no idea. And so I would say values are something you should really take the time to investigate. And some of the tools and ways that you can do that are actually by looking at the things that you read, looking at the things that you like, looking at your social media feeds and looking at those themes and letting that be a guide to your values versus values that you want to ascribe to, because that's really who you are. So if you constantly are loving environmental posts or things about animals or things about nature, that's probably part of your core values. So to not include that in who you are as a brand or as an individual, I think does a disservice to the authenticity of what makes you unique. And so I think values are now something that people need to examine more closely and intimately, and to share some of the deepest parts of who they are versus just pick a fun, cool, trendy adjective out of a thesaurus. So.
And I think also your values and the value you provide has more to do with the problems that you solve for other people than what you're actually selling. For example, somebody who is in the life insurance business isn't selling insurance. What they're selling is, oh my goodness, the problem they're solving is, oh my goodness, what's my family going to do if I'm gone? And so a lot of it has to do with what problem are you in business to solve, who's having that problem, and how can you solve it in a way that other people might not be able to. And communicating that in addition to what you stand for, I think is very important in making that brand pop.
Awesome. Well put. Yeah. So I think that's a great starting spot for a lot of us. Identify those values, write them down. What are the things that you like? Those are integral and core to who you are. The next thing we talked about some of the other challenges out there. One could be fear of putting yourself out there. One, not knowing. Are there any other challenges that you see that individual brands, companies are doing that, or individuals are doing, things that people should avoid when they're putting their brand out there?
I think there are all sorts of mistakes people can make. One of the most common is talking about themselves incessantly, and really, if you're in business, it's not about you, it's about your customers and about what issues your customers are having. And what I see on LinkedIn quite a bit is a lot of people just pitching, 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 and it's all about buy my stuff, buy my services, and there's not much value being provided in the posts. And so certainly there's a place for for making a case for your business, but you have to make sure that some of the things you're posting are actually providing value without a sales pitch attached. And the more you can do of that, the better your chances that people will actually read what you wrote.
Yeah, I'll borrow a really common phrase out right now, which is started by Simon Sinek about 10, 11 years ago, which is start with why. And it's been overused everywhere on every platform, but it truly is a core tenet of how I do my work. And that is that people care about why you do what you do. They don't necessarily, we're transitioning from how you do your work to why you do your work, and the ways that you engage with your target audience. And I think that's so important because I think people skip that. They talk about what they can do for someone. They talk about who they are, but they don't talk about why they do what they do. And so to Phil's point with the pitching, we're not in a pitching economy. I've never pitched. I don't pitch unless I'm making it to the final round of an RFP, which I very, very rarely bid on. I'm by referral only. And so people say, oh my gosh, Nina, how do you, like, you're in marketing, you don't have social media except for LinkedIn. You don't pitch. How do you have a sales funnel? Because I'm authentic. People know they're going to get the truth from me. They're going to get the raw, unfiltered truth, and that I deeply, deeply care about helping people and finding effective and efficient ways to solve problems. So people just refer me. Sometimes people refer me for things I don't even do. Nina, she's great at that. No, I'm not. I don't actually do that. But because they like me so much, they'll refer me because they just want me to interact with more people that are having challenging business problems. So make sure you're starting with why. Why do you do what you do? Whether you're a garbage man or you're a hospital administrator or you're the CEO of an agency or you're Nike, why do you do what you do? I think that's what we're missing still in the current market.
Yeah, and so my input on that as far as challenges with branding and social media would be, I think organization is a big challenge and staying organized. So that's where I feel like the planning ahead and, working with a team to, maybe categorize each, what I like to do is have different categories for each post. So, like team posts, client work, projects, and then miscellaneous and fun. I find that really helps me to kind of get organized with my posts, and then I can from there plan it out in the calendar.
Yeah, they're very helpful. Yeah, because being on top of it, being organized, and scheduling things out and making sure on top of it is going to be key to success. What is, this is kind of one of the more fun questions I like to ask people, but you guys are all marketers, so I imagine you're passionate and you guys all have your own whys, but what's your favorite aspect of what you do? What's your favorite part about helping your clients? I'll just open that up to the panel. Anyone that wants to answer it.
I think more than anything else, it's uncovering something that somebody else wasn't able to uncover and putting together a campaign that works. What the tools I sell are radio advertising and various digital platforms. And what it comes down to is, can I help my customers get more customers of their own? And what's more fun than anything else is uncovering something that is going to make a business unique and telling that story in a way that gets the phone ringing or gets web traffic and measurable results. I think those victories. I've been doing this since the '90s, and that never gets old. Having somebody come back and say my business just doubled because of the idea you gave me. Those are the fun things.
For me and my work over the past at least 3 years, I've kind of assumed this position where I'm at the 10,000 foot view. I'm not in the weeds, so I get to miss sometimes the day-to-day nitty-gritty of how the magic happens. I'm more way hovering up here working with executive teams. But I love kind of playing puppet master and helping put together the right teams with the right budget. So what I can say to someone is when they don't understand, hey, what's an appropriate spend? That's often a question I get from agencies, from individuals, from big brands. We don't know what to spend on this campaign, or we don't know the right vendors to use. So I can kind of help make the magic happen on that level to make sure the right partnerships are actually in place so that the work succeeds. So I might call a Snow, or I might call a Phil and say, hey, you know what, Phil, I just think you're going to have amazing rapport with this client. He's got 3 other vendors that do exactly what you do, but he's really going to like working with you. Would you be able to do this project for this budget? And for me, that gives me a tremendous amount of satisfaction to know that people are doing work with folks they really like, and they're comfortable numbers that they can work within. And usually if those mechanisms are in place, the outcomes are tremendous. So I had clients last year that grew in one of the worst years ever, right? With the economy and the pandemic and all the crises we had. I had one client who grew by 320%, and they were on the verge of failure in January. They had 2 employees. So the fact that you can have tremendous growth in times of strife like that makes me incredibly happy. And it was just putting the right pieces into place.
Yeah, I'll kind of echo on that, putting pieces in place. So for me, when I opened my agency, it was kind of a challenge to figure out what my role was with the agency, because, you know, graphic design is my background, and I had to step away from doing a lot of the design work if I was going to meet deadlines and be able to take on more clients and run a business. So I found that a lot of what I do in my purpose in my work is just finding the right creatives, and also, you know, as a creative director, looking at what we're creating and kind of editing, going back and saying, does this make sense? And also, you know, going into businesses and creating stuff for them and kind of bringing this creativity and fun into the business world is really what is most gratifying to me. I love that. I love getting to have fun and, you know, getting to work with businesses and business people in a more creative way, you know, and bring art into the business world.
It's much needed.
It is.
And we bringing things to life, and, you know, showcasing those values and making sure it's not just this, I don't know, empty shell of a company, but it actually, you know, has a rich culture, and it's able to articulate their values and their ideals. So yeah, at this time, I'd like to open it up to the audience. Are there any questions from the audience that you'd like to ask maybe the panel in general, or anyone in particular on our panel?
I'd like to ask a question,
Knoll?
Brian. Yes. My question is about brand change and brand evolution. When do you know it's the right time to change or evolve your brand? What are the triggers you look at? What are the forces, internal and external, that you look at? And what are the pitfalls that you avoid?
I think certainly one is to try to see if the world is evolving away from you. And I'll give you an example from about 20 years ago. There used to be a business that was very successful called Portland Typewriter. And they sold typewriters right up until the time when nobody bought typewriters anymore. And so they switched to various computer devices, but they kept the same name probably for 3 or 4 years after the world had left typewriters behind. They were still Portland Typewriter. And I think part of it is is where you're going as a company. Federal Express wanted to become known for more than delivery, so they changed their name to FedEx. United Parcel Service is not United Parcel Service anymore; it's UPS, and that gives them the freedom to begin to move into different areas. So part of it is just trying to figure out if there's still a market for what you're selling, and if there isn't, it may be time to adjust that brand.
Yeah, I also think that if an organization is asking those questions, it's probably time to look at it, because sometimes it's just an inner knowing, an intuition of we're not keeping up with the market, we're not a market leader, we're not authentically representing who we are. I call it the problem of outgrowing your clothes. You know, it's like You can still have the same pair of pants in your closet and love it, but if they don't fit you anymore, you need a new pair of pants. And so if you're getting those growing pains, how do you know, right? Like, you know the feeling when you've kind of outgrown your brand. And I think a brand evolution is something everyone should build into their process to look at. But unfortunately, it's usually until there's some critical factor kind of pushing them into that process, it's always kind of an additional thing to do that gets put, on the back burner. But I think it can actually be a really wonderfully insightful process, because it actually redefines who you are. And what I found is one of the amazing things about doing a rebrand or an evolution of a brand internally for stakeholders and employees is they get to redefine the purpose of why they're there. So you actually increase engagement, because you have people wrestle with these tough questions of, why do you do what you do? Why do you show up to work every day? Why do you love this company? And then sometimes you get answers that aren't so favorable, right? But that's part of the magic. So I also believe in surveying. Back to the tools, I think surveying is incredibly helpful. Even simple surveys, internally and externally, will usually point you in the right direction.
Yeah, and I'll just say, so I think rebranding is a great thing to do. I think a lot of people kind of shy away from it, and it usually never hurts to change your brand and update it.
Definitely. Yeah. Awesome question, Kunal. Yeah. And well put by all of the panelists. At this point, is there another question that anyone would like to ask to our panel?
I got a question.
Hey, oh, go ahead.
Oh, sorry, Sam. Yeah, you can go right after me. I don't think mine will take that long. My question
Sure.
to the panel is, what advice would you give to a small business that's just starting up for getting their name out there, getting their product out to the public?
Become known for one thing. I don't know what kind of product you've got, but pick one thing that your product does really well and become known for that. And if you become known for that, you can give everybody the rest of the story after they make contact with you. There's a guy named Bill Schley who wrote a book called Why Johnny Can't Brand back in the 90s. And he talked about something he called the positioning paradox. He says, the narrower you focus your message, the wider that message actually goes. So really just pick one thing, become known for that one thing.
I work with a lot of startups that are bootstrapping it all the time. And, budget, but number one, I'll dispel this myth. Budget is an issue for everyone. I've worked with Fortune 500s, and I've worked with startups who have $10,000 in personal business loans, right? And budget is always an issue. So, I just kind of dispel that myth right there. You kind of have to work with what you have and try to find other ways around that. But people work with people that they like. It's that simple. Until AI really comes online and takes over, we've got another 10 years or so. People work with other humans that they like. So in addition to finding the thing that you do well and making sure that your value proposition is there, find the people that are in your network that can actually help get your message out there, which is exactly what I did unintentionally. And people fall in love with you, because we're still in this iconic era where people want to support the people behind the brand, not just the brand. And so if people like you, they'll buy your product. I buy products all the time from people I like. The product's okay. It's decent, but I buy it because I want to support that person or their organization. And so oftentimes that's, especially in this era where we can't connect as humans the way we want to, that's something that's really important to understand. So great question.
Yeah, and I think for a small business starting out, one thing that's really worked for me is having a target niche market. So echoing on Nina, people, your relationships are really important, and being a likable person and being nice to everybody is one rule of thumb. And then, over the years, whatever industry that you have kind of fallen into, if you keep in contact with that industry. So for me, Oregon Home Magazine was a great experience. And then I took that into my agency. So a lot of my clients are in the home industry. And that's been really powerful to, really have a strong network in one industry and then, be kind of an expert at that.
Yeah, very well put by everyone on the panel. And then CM, do you want to ask your question?
Yeah, I was just wondering, what type of posts are most effective on LinkedIn? Because for example, for Instagram, it's very obvious what you want to post, right? It's videos and pictures, and they're very engaging. But for LinkedIn, it's a little bit different. So like, who are the people that use this LinkedIn, or the businesses, and what type of posts are the most effective for them?
You can find a wide range of ideas on it, because LinkedIn doesn't share what their algorithm is, and they're changing it all the time. I have heard that a post with your own text does much better than a post with a link out of LinkedIn. If you post an article and somebody has to click on that article and leave LinkedIn, LinkedIn doesn't like that. LinkedIn wants you to stay put. So they're more likely to to give more attention to native videos and to text-based ads rather than a link to somewhere else. I think I put links up just because it's faster to post an article than to write my own, but writing your own is generally the best idea. The other thing I'd recommend with LinkedIn, it's a social network, and you want to be social about it. If anyone comments, acknowledge it, comment back right away, for two reasons. Number one, because they will feel good for having been acknowledged, and number two, because LinkedIn is going to give more attention to a post with engagement on it. And so anytime you get notified that somebody's commented, come back right away and acknowledge it. Even if it's a dumb comment, say something nice about it to keep that conversation going, because LinkedIn likes that.
Sam, what industry can I ask that you're in?
Personally, I'm in tech, and I get a lot of. I don't use LinkedIn because I get so much spam. But I was just curious who uses it, and how is it effective for those guys?
Okay, yeah, in tech, I hear you on that. I get a lot of spam on LinkedIn as well. I think the things that I find most effective in terms of content on LinkedIn are things that are highly interesting in the insider's perspective on their work. So if you're developing an app, talk about that experience. Wow, we just ran into a pitfall at milestone 2, and here's why. We have 3 great ideas, and we can't come to a consensus how to move forward. Sometimes you can even ask for feedback on that. People say, oh my gosh, this is what CM does. I had no idea that he makes apps, right? Or if you're an engineer, you can talk about how you solved a unique challenge and then show what the end result will eventually look like. So people get to come into the inside of your industry and really understand what you do. Good information will usually be anything that I say is like an aha, right? Because I scroll through LinkedIn, I only click on maybe 2 or 3 posts out of 300 in a day. And that's because there are things that stop and make me think as an aha moment, or things that are incredibly innovative. And not everybody can pull off the innovation thing depending on your space. So in tech specifically, I think there are so many hidden gems in many industries that people don't talk about on LinkedIn. And they just post what I call the superficial content that anybody can post. If anybody can post it, don't post it. Post something really unique.
And so I'll say, just kind of the obvious with LinkedIn is, that it's definitely the more professional platform. Like, people are posting on there in order to find a job or, network with other professionals. So, don't post pictures of your cat or your kids on LinkedIn.
Unless they're part of the innovative process, or maybe, or something like that. But no, I'm with you. Very, very well. Yeah, very well put by everyone on the panel. At this time, I'm going to ask our panelists to pull out their crystal balls and tell us, what are some things that are doing very well, that are going to continue to do well, or are there any trends that might be happening here in the near future? I know, kind of a tough question, but this will be our last one of the day.
Absolutely, and you can hold me to it. Whatever I predict is going to come true without any question, because I know everything. But what I've been seeing a lot of is the return of audio, and the line. There's a big advertising agency, international advertising agency called Carrot, that calls it screen-free media, that there has been a backlash because of all the time people spend on Zoom and various other video platforms. They are now trying to get away from screens. And so whereas a year ago, video was the most important thing, and video is still extremely important, audio is coming back. Two things in particular: there has been a drop in e-reader use and a growth in audiobooks. That's one thing that's happened over the last year. And then the other is the rise of podcasts. And whereas writing a book is always a very good way to establish a reputation, a close second to that, and maybe even inching into first right now, is having your own podcast. That is something that if you do it consistently can really establish your reputation. So I would say the big one's audio right now.
I'll just say from a graphic and creative standpoint, I would say, there's always new stuff coming out graphically, and the more that we can be on top of, new trends, I think like creating kind of virtual worlds and motion graphics are, the more dynamic you can be with adding motion and, creating an experience for people online, that's, in the future, I think that's just going to keep growing and get even more extreme.
And my parting comment would be just the rise of authenticity. Content marketing is now turned into conversation marketing. So it's really about creating a sense of intimacy and belonging with your target audience. I think we're going to see the rise of the gig economy. That's really happening now, with people wanting to be solopreneurs or entrepreneurs and not work for kind of traditional large companies, and do what fuels them and what makes them really happy with their passion. And a disruption in how we value tools. So I work a lot with the financial industry, and there's been a tremendous uproar on how do you create a brand valuation. So why is one company worth $1 billion versus another company worth 100,000? I've been asked to be part of kind of mergers and acquisitions projects for really unique brands like social media influencers that want to sell their brand. And so we're going to see new challenges like that. Well, how do you value a person posting pictures on Instagram who has 20 million followers? So new and emerging kind of ways that we have traditionally thought about business, I think are going to continue to be on the uptrend.
Wow, thank you so much to all of our panelists. I know some of my big takeaways is building those relationships digitally, a lot of the tools, how to be unique, bringing life to your brand, and like we just heard, some of the future things that we can look forward to in 2021 and beyond. So at this time, this concludes our panel discussion. I want to say a big thank you to our panelists, and as well to you, our audience, for tuning in for today. Our panelists will be receiving an Amazon gift card tomorrow in your email inbox, so please be on the lookout for that. If you don't receive it, please let me know.
Thank you.
I'll make sure that gets to you. But yeah, definitely. On behalf of At the River's Edge, I want to say a big thank you to the audience. You guys have been awesome, and I hope this has been helpful for everyone and enlightening, and gives you a better understanding about marketing yourself and this year and beyond. Thanks for tuning in to VidMark, a place for all your video marketing needs. Be sure to subscribe on your favorite platform and tune in every Thursday morning on either iTunes, Spotify, YouTube, and more. For a behind-the-scenes look and some bonus tips, you can follow us on Facebook, Instagram, and LinkedIn. Until next time, good luck with your video marketing efforts, and remember, always hit the mark.